Welcome back to another episode of the Experts in Fire podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vennard, and with us today is Mr. Lance Mark. Today's episode is How to Care for Your Gas Log Set. Let's get into it. Hey Lance, how you doing, brother?
Good. Thank you for having me, Mike.
Always good to sit here and chat with you, brother. We've been doing this for a long time, but not sharing it with other people. Man, this is fun, man. This time of year where it's getting cold out. We got a snow front coming in this weekend. I'm scrambling to get vehicles parked in the garage. And then I get to sit here with you and talk about how to take care of a gas log set, man. It couldn't get any better. It's so fitting.
A lot of good things happening now. This past weekend, Mike, I gotta tell you, I went out on my street glide. I'm a Harley, folks, dressed as Santa. I rode into downtown Detroit.
Yeah.
My big obnoxious audio system on my bike and Christmas music, and man, people were smiling and waving and thumbs up, and it's to me, it's a great time of year.
I agree, man. It's funny how easy it is to bring a little taste of joy to other people's lives. And I got to tell you, it's something I love about you, Lance. You always bring a smile, bring a big hug. I feed off of it, bro. You don't know how much you impact people. And so I take this moment right here to tell you, I feed off of you, man. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you. And today, my understanding is we're going to be talking about gas logs and basically how to, you get one and how to take care of it and keep that thing running strong for as long as you can. I think I've got some good stuff for folks that maybe they hadn't considered. And I wanted to mention this, Mike. When you invest in a new log set, on average, what are you going to pay for a gas log set?
Anywhere from $600 to $1,200, I would say, depending on, where you want to land in there.
You've picked the right product and you got what you want and what you need. And that's important. It's the right size. It's going to do the things that you want it to do. It's going to work the way that you want it to work. I would say if you want to make sure that you take good care of it, make sure that you take the time to read through the instructions when you set it up and install it properly. This is the very best advice I can give to folks who want to keep any gas appliance working well.
You and me both, brother.
Burned, you got to use it. You got to whether it's a fire pit outdoors, so it's a gas log set inside. You got to use it. Recently, with the whole COVID thing we went through in the past few years, it really has kind of turned things upside down and whatnot. And we're a company where a lot of us were working from home for extended periods of time. I had a pickup truck that sat in my driveway for probably 8 months. Never even moved it. And I think it's something folks can kind of relate to. You let a vehicle sit for a week, and I think folks are already kind of like, is this going to be okay? Is it going to start up for me? We got the battery to think about. We've got possibility is the fuel in there going to start to maybe varnish or maybe harden somehow in some of these little lines or what. I'm not a mechanic. It's something I think folks can relate to. And so I think the very best thing you can do to keep a gas appliance running, like I said, is use it and enjoy it. Do it regularly.
That is a great example, Lance. I've never thought of that one before when discussing gas appliances. But that's 100% right. We go up to our cabin and it sits for months until we go back again. And every time you turn the fuel line on for the stove, there's a process to go through to get that thing going again. Versus when I use the stove here in my house, I just turn the knob, brother, because we use it. We use it daily. We use it every week. That is a fantastic example. So it feels like we're starting through the list here. How to care for your gas log set. Rule number 1, use it. Flip the switch on. Enjoy the fire that you paid for.
As folks are enjoying their fireplaces and they're using them, of course, they're not burning them 24/7. If you look at any surface in your home and you get an idea of what that looks like if you don't dust it for a week or 2 weeks or a month, it's skin cells. Sometimes it's little tiny particles of pet hair. It's some of the dirt and dust that we've dragged in from our shoes and whatnot from outside, particulates and whatnot that aren't getting filtered out, by the furnace filter. And those, particularly the couple things I mentioned, if those things get heated, That's organic matter. The reason that I say that it's organic matter, and when it burns, it smells kind of icky. Now think about that. Now over time, we've got an open fireplace, and we got some dust and some dirt and all this kind of stuff accumulated in, and possibly even some of these other things, and they get lit up. Initially, when you get a gas log set, it might not be unusual for you to have a little bit of burn off time, 6-8 hours, where potential manufacturing oils that may have gotten on logs or on parts of the burner need to burn off. And so when you initially get these set up, it's a good idea to open a window and do just a nice long burn. After that, the same thing really does apply. If you light it up and you get a kind of a nasty smell that you hadn't gotten prior, that may be the result of some dust and dirt that got on there over some time, it'll burn off. What I will tell you this, though, is that everything that's in that fireplace that we sold you is inert. It is chemically inert, and it's important. It's an important point. The gas logs are not burning. Those were in a kiln for like 2 weeks straight. At like 2,000 degrees. You're not creating an environment that could affect those in that way. The burners themselves are metal. You can char them or scorch them or whatnot, but you're not going to burn the burners. And then even the some of the components. And I want to make sure that we touch base on this a little bit. And it's not unusual for fireplaces to have some flame sensors and some components, valves, pilot assemblies. Things that we want to make sure that we have a look at on a routine basis to make sure that we're maintaining these. But these are all parts that are made to be in fire, and none of them are going to actually burn in and of themselves. The paint on a gas log, let's say a faux gas log, is there to stay.
Right. And that's a solid point, Lance. We get a lot of questions on, is my log burning? Am I hurting my log? And those logs are designed specifically to be in fire the way they are. The burners are controlled as well to only put out so many BTUs. So when I turn on my gas log set and I smell something burning, and I think that's where we're heading in this discussion, right? It's because of all of the dander, all of the dust, all of the stuff that's gotten into the log set. How would I stay away from that? Because I like smelling good things too, right? We have the candles and stuff.
Sure. I think it's a great question, and I'll tell you the best strategy that I've heard is that on a regular basis, and maybe you do it if you're not using the fireplace regularly, maybe it's something that you do once a month. If anybody's ever had the experience of doing some painting and you've had a brush that you were hoping to use the next time, you go to grab that brush and realize, maybe I didn't do a real great job at getting all the paint out of the boot, and that brush at that point is just stiff. You can get brushes like that actually at a hardware store if you want something that stiff, but like a dry cleaning, I think, is the most sensible way to clean these up. And this is how I would do it. Take a stiff brush like that, take the log out of the fireplace, and get it on a garage, on a blanket or a drop cloth or something like that, a piece of cardboard, and just go over that surface with that stiff brush and do what you can to kind of agitate that surface. You'll find that you're going to be able to get quite a bit of any kind of carbon buildup on there. Will start to come off, and then vacuum it with a shop vac and do what you can to get as much of that dust and dirt out of there. Now, I've heard folks say you can go a step further. You can kind of wipe it down with like a damp cloth. You could go a little bit further. I just would caution folks against really getting that log kind of wet. If you've done that, you've done a pretty good job of getting most of what you're talking about, trying to avoid off of there. And then make sure you set it up, and if it's a vent-free unit, pay particular attention to making sure that you're using the manual to set those logs back up in the exact location that they need to be set up in. You're gonna take those out, clean those up. Those logs are in a very specific place so as not to impinge flame, and they burn perfectly like they should.
That's a great point though, Lance. I was going to ask you if water is acceptable, and then how much. When you said take them all out, I immediately thought, are people going to just remove these things and then put them back in the wrong way? Is there a wrong way to put them back in.
There's a little more forgiveness with a vented set than there is with a vent-free set. And I guess when I say a little more forgiveness, with a vent-free set, Mike, there's no forgiveness. You just do it the way they tell you to do it. There's no other way to do it. There's no question. You got questions on how you set it back up. You don't have your manual. You bought it from Woodland Direct. Get on the horn with us. We can do pictures back and forth. Our techs want to make sure that you're using everything you got from us safe. With a vented set, if a log weren't in the right place, it's not necessarily going to cause any kind of hazard. It might not necessarily look like it should because they are kind of set up and designed so that there's a general kind of a look where they look their best as a display.
Gotcha. On a vent-free side, if we're talking about a vent-free gas log set, then those are very specific in how they have to go back in place. You have fire-related questions, and we have answers. You can email us your questions at podcast@woodlanddirect.com or give us a call at 586-221-3638. We would love to be able to answer them right here on the Experts in Fire podcast.
You've got sensitive parts. We want to make sure we put that stuff back in there, that we're treating this fireplace like it has the sensitive parts that it does, and we don't hurt any of that.
That is a great point, Lance, because it's imperative. Take your time. Don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush while you do this, because those sensitive parts, and then take your time and take it easy.
And as well too, on an annual basis, if folks out there that have gas appliances were to give a call to the pro who did the installation, if they hired a professional to do that, or they want to call a local pro, it's a call they're accustomed to getting. And you'll find that you'll get folks that are more than happy to come out, do a service call, make sure everything's in good shape, working properly. If you have any doubts, whatsoever or whatnot. And then for our contractors, if you're not calling the folks that you've done installations for, you're missing. You should be giving them a holler every once in a while and say, hey, I did that log set for you last year. I can come by for a small fee and check things out, make sure everything's running great. And it's a great time to get right in front of your customers again and then see if maybe there's something else that you might be able to do for them.
That's fantastic, Lance. The big one you talked about was use it. Use it regularly. Like a car, you want to get in it, you want to drive it, you want to use it so that everything is functioning properly. Number 2 is get dust and dirt off, pet dander, all of those types of things so that you don't have those smells. What's the next thing for our listeners to consider?
If an appliance has been sitting for a little bit and you're not using it on a regular basis, sometimes it takes a little time for everything to kind of richen up and the fuel to be coming through as strong as rich as it should be. And so initially there can be a little bit of delay. Now this is what that means. The best way to take something that's been sitting for a little bit and give it time for all the fuel to finally get to where it needs to be to make the business happen is to just go through the startup protocol, including wait times per the instructions. Don't do anything silly like try to crack a pipe. It is sometimes that first time it'll take a little bit. I've got an vent-free appliance I do use it seasonally. And the first time that I use it, I wrestle with it. With that as well, initially you might need to take a little bit of time and be patient with it, and again, make sure you're following the instructions. There are some real sensitive parts in gas log sets, and particularly what we're talking about are flame sensors, and we've got a little pilot assembly a lot of times that's directing a real small flame toward a sensor. That sensor is producing enough electricity to operate an electromagnet inside the valve. The amount of electricity it produces is so small, it's measured in millivoltages. It's very, very, very small amount of electricity. And the reason that I'm making that point is that it is really relying on the temper differential in a hot junction versus a cold junction on that sensor and insulating that sensor with a little bit of dust. Or I've seen enough carbon build up on those sensors where even the carbon itself will insulate it. They'll simply make it so that it is just not behaving in the way that it should be. I want to caution folks, when you're handling these, when you're looking at these little parts, they're delicate. They're very reliable. They work great. They've been in appliances for decades, and there really isn't a better option that folks have been able to come up with because it is such rock solid technology, but they can be a little delicate. And good news is if you need to change out, let's say a thermocouple, it's typically not a super expensive part, but For example, you could mishandle a thermocouple, and as you're trying to clean it, you could crack the ceramic casing. Maybe not even visually you can see the difference, but you've compromised it somehow, which will cause it to fail and not read like it should. That entire burner, once that pilot's lit and you light up that burner, that entire burner should be completely lit within 4 seconds. If it is not, we've got an issue.
As you consider the flame sensors and things of that nature, because I think of our listeners and I think, okay, we have pros out there who do this every day. And then we have homeowners who go, man, is it something easy enough for me to fix? And I've done it before. Lance, I've done it with furnaces. I've done it with hot water tanks. I've done it, in a lot of different ways. But those pieces, if you bend one in the wrong direction, maybe it's just the pilot itself, and you don't understand what you're doing, you may have just wrecked it even further. It might have been an easy fix to start, but it's like every DIY project, right? Be careful not to turn it into a bigger project than what it is.
It happens, and I think this is probably one of the best things an installer and a customer can do at the end of a project is really go over every bit of that. As a homeowner, if you bought a product from us and you had a local pro put it in, at the end ask them, just say, hey, let me ask you a question. How do I take care of this? What are some things I can look for? If it's not working, are there some troubleshooting things that I can kind of do myself to kind of get through it? And then ask them to show you where things are located. Ask them to show you where that pilot assembly is. Make sure he's leaving the manual with you and you've got a good idea, the diagram of how logs are put together. Not just for that, but sometimes things happen and folks are going to really enjoy gas log sets for years without any kind of issue at all. We'll hear from folks every once in a while, but if at any point people have bought from Woodland Direct, it's even if it's out of warranty, there is never a time where we were not happy to hear from you. I've heard from customers who bought from us 10 years ago and said, hey, I've got a Peterson gas log set. It's not working. Not really sure what's going on. In some cases, it's a matter of an adjustment, and we get them up and running again, or maybe we need to replace, something simple like a thermocouple or something, and it's enough to get them up and running again.
Love it. It's good stuff, Lance. So let's just recap real fast here. Once you have found what you want, you've had it installed, and it's functioning, first rule in taking care of it is use it. And I keep stressing that because it's such a great point, man. It is. The fireplace can become that thing that sits over there until you go, hey, can we turn that on? Or one of the kids says, can we turn on the fireplace? But if you really plan it in your head to go, this is like my car, I need to take it for a ride. I need to turn it on for a little bit. I need to use it. It's going to be your best bet for making sure it's going to fire the next time you want to use it. So use it. Get the dust out, like you said. And I'm so glad you said that. Most of us do use certain things seasonally, especially if they're heat giving. You have a vent-free unit that you use at your house. You're not using that in the summer. So there is going to be a period of time where it's going to collect dust, it's going to collect dander, and you're going to want to get that off so you don't smell it and so you don't burn that organic material in your home. And then considerations for flame sensors and things of that nature, they're intricate. And I wanted to point out in this last piece, our pros are so good at what we do. A couple years ago, we had a big blizzard here in Michigan, and my power stayed on, but my brother's house, the power was out. So my sister-in-law calls me and says, hey, I'm trying to turn my fireplace on. They have a direct vent fireplace, and it's a millivolt system. And she's like, it won't light. So we walked through the troubleshooting that we could walk through, and I said, girl, get on the phone and call a pro. He'll have it up in 3 minutes. I have an idea of what it is, but I'm not there. I'm a couple 100 miles away from you. And sure enough, she called a pro. He came in and within 2 minutes was able to get her fireplace up and rolling. So they had at least some heat that way coming into the house. You know what I mean? So shout out to our pros. These are the guys who do it every day. They're going to take care of you in a hurry and in a heartbeat. So Lance, this has been great, man. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off here?
I really appreciate the opportunity to help folks, our pros out there that are doing it for their customers as well as the customers who come to us direct. And This has been a great year for Woodland Direct. We appreciate you folks so much.
We do. We love our customers. Very thankful. It was one of the first things that Lance taught me when I came to Woodland 10 years ago. Without our customers, we don't have jobs. And we're so thankful, even though we know there are going to be problems. That's just the nature of life. There are going to be issues. We try to position ourselves to say, hey, let us be a solution for you. A weapon in your arsenal to go, I have all these other problems in life. If I'm having a problem with something that Woodland can help me with, we're here to help. So Lance, thank you, brother. I appreciate the wisdom you've shared today and over the years. I'm thankful that you're here, and we'll see you next time, brother.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you for including me.
Join us next time for 2022 Fire in Review. We'll see you then.